It is the Iron Bowl, folks. This is what it comes down to in the state of Alabama. It is bragging rights to the hilt. Aunts and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters and partners in marriage and all sorts of people don't look at each other the same way this particular week. And maybe it lingers throughout the season and throughout the off season for some as well. But this is the Iron Bowl, and it's on the Plains this year. So got to think Auburn's got a puncher's chance in this one, taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. We got Kyle Loomis here from E2C Network, everything Auburn, the Auburn community, athletics, and beyond. Please check out Kyle and the rest of the crew there at E2C Network. Kyle, how you doing today?
Excited for this week. This is what we look forward to every single year. Yes, it means that the regular season is done, but boy, what a way to kick it, or not kick it off, but to end things with the greatest rivalry in all of sports. And I know that's a controversial statement, and you can have a big debate episode, even maybe for yourself on your shows about that. But I will always say this is the greatest rivalry in sports, bar none.
So before we get to the nuts and bolts of this matchup, since it is a rivalry of this magnitude, we would be remiss not to get some flavor. And I know some just from being a college football guy, but I also know some from being down there for 6 or 7 years covering the game. But you're entrenched in it and have been for your entire life. Mm-hmm. So what makes this one, whether you want to say unique, special, or the best?
It is what you kind of opened up with. This is one that truly divides families. I mean, this is the Civil War again continued. The Civil War never ended. It just continued with Auburn and Alabama. To give you a little bit of personal perspective, my mother is an Alabama fan. Now, she's not as rabid as an Alabama fan as some you might find out there. But she, when they win, she walks around with a little bit of a smirk on her face, and it's hard to stomach that for 365 days a year. And I'm sure it goes the reverse way on that. I mean, when you think about it this way, I'll compare with some other rivalries in college football. And I know that I used to always say this analogy. USC and Notre Dame is a great historic rivalry, maybe less so just in terms of the last couple of years, but they're across country. They don't see each other. The next one you'd think of, Ohio State, Michigan. Yes, they are next to each other, but the bulk of their fan base is at least somewhat separated by some states. This is a state that is literally divided pretty much at a diagonal down the middle of who owns what territory. You're going to find arguments on who says who owns this part of the state or whatever, but pretty much a diagonal going down the state. The state. You're just going to see that bulk up there is going to be for we'll call them East Mississippi Community College. I know there is an East Mississippi Community College. We love to call them that from time to time. And the other side is Auburn. And that's really what it's all about. And this truly divides people. And yes, it reaches its peak this week, but it's every day, every second of every hour. If you walk into a cafe in Tuscaloosa, I've done that with Auburn gear on, you will just get sneered at the entire time. If you do the reverse in Auburn, Alabama, the same thing will happen. Now, I don't want people to think that we just hate each other. Some people do in terms of the true sense of the hate. But when it comes to the sports hate, yes, it gets no deeper and no more fervor comes between Auburn and Alabama.
Yes, we could have a great debate. We won't go into that right now, but I will not debate that portion of it. And I will say this is my best slice of it to try to bring it across to the masses would be one time I was driving back home to Mississippi when I lived there and worked there and covered the SEC, was driving back there from Ohio in the middle of the summer, like early in the summer, not football season summer, like August camp, like May or June. And as soon as I got within range of a radio station somewhere in Alabama, may not even have been exactly in Alabama, I'm somewhere in Tennessee, and I pick up a sports radio station. They are arguing Alabama and Auburn in May.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it goes beyond football. I mean, it goes into the other sports, but even if we haven't even talked about the history of this yet. I mean, this is Suge Jordan and Paul Bear Bryant. This is Bo Jackson and Joe Namath. All these great, and that's just some of the older names. Some of the latest stars that have come out of each of these two programs as well have just created just great moments I haven't even mentioned the kick six yet, which is the 10-year anniversary of that. Hold on a second, Alabama fans. That'll stir them up a little bit if they're watching right now. But obviously, it goes beyond history. It goes beyond family ties. This is truly a rivalry that cannot be matched by anyone else. And I will stand on that principle.
This Alabama team is getting better and better and better and better. I did not doubt them. It's on record, folks. So don't tell them. No, it's not as though I'm making this up right now. Despite their struggles early on, I let everyone know I had faith in Nick Saban and the talent on that team, and they have put it together. And Jalen Milroe has obviously been the centerpiece of all of that in his development. Auburn, on the other hand, with last week's showing, which again, the score made its way across the nation and everybody took note, and I was surprised. And even though, as I mentioned to you, we had our guy Brent Beard from First Coast News who said, yeah, look out for this upset. So Auburn doesn't seem to be playing its best football based on that result and some other results, Texas A&M and others. And then we've got also, the passing game. Let's start with the passing game. It's just been deplorable. I'll put that word on there. You look at Peyton Thorne's numbers from last week. They don't look bad, but they just, they weren't getting anywhere. Completing a lot of passes, not getting anywhere. And, where is the path to victory here from a strategic standpoint?
There's so many ways you could answer that question. I'm not going to sit here and say that Peyton Thorne has been a hot and cold answer at quarterback for Auburn this year. At times he's looked at every bit of the expectations that we had for him, maybe less so than some people wanted. But then there's times where it just doesn't seem to be put together. Interestingly enough, it seemed to be correlating when we were on the road where those struggles would happen more. But this happened against what should have been an easy game against New Mexico State in Jordan-Hare Stadium. So to me, it's beyond, Peyton Thorne's not the answer. That's the easy answer everyone goes to. I mean, this is truly just an offense that has not found a foundation that it can fall back upon when things aren't going the right way. People obviously lump everything on the quarterback. I saw a quarterback that was running for his life the entire night, was under duress, especially in the first half against a pass rush, and was trying to find some room to be able to stand up and throw probably more deep passes than he would have liked. He's thrown a couple of really beautiful deep balls in his time at Auburn thus far. And then there's maybe not in this game, but there's games where he's been on fire. The offensive line is doing great for him. And then balls are hitting the wide receivers in the hands and just dropping them. I think there was a couple in this game now that I'm thinking about it. So it's beyond the quarterback. The passing game, as you said, especially in the last game, deplorable. It's really been the question of how Auburn is going to perform in a game is basically how the passing game is going to go. If it's not good, it's not going to be good for Auburn. You can't have that happen against Alabama this week. And I guess you can't have it happen against New Mexico State either.
So you would think that they can't get behind. That is not necessarily the best path. They need to get off to a good start. They're going to have the home crowd roused up to try to send them off onto the field with some energy and to get off to a quick start. Jarquez Hunter and that running back room you would think would get leaned on. Now, of course, he only carried the ball 8 times last week. I don't know exactly why not. Maybe it was just the deficit that they were working with in the second half and really couldn't go to the run game. But you would think that he or somebody needs to have a big game out of that backfield.
Oh, yeah. And he's really come on over the last half of the season, obviously with the suspension to start off the season, and then just not himself, whether it was by design, meaning he was having to earn his way back into those roles, or there was some lingering, nagging injury or something like that. But over the last half of the season, we saw the Jarquez we knew was there, the athleticism. I mean, him hurdling people, running over people, blowing past people with speed. He really is just a complete back. And so it makes you wonder what happened. Like, why did we not lean on him and the rest of that running back room, which is highly talented as well, a little bit more? Maybe it is because of the scenarios we found ourselves in against New Mexico State. But you got to think, you're at home. You would think you would want to establish the momentum, you would want to establish the tempo when you're in your house. And it just seemed like we were behind the 8 ball the entire game. Can't happen against Alabama, especially an Alabama team, as you pointed out, that's it's found its footing, at least for now.
Got Kyle Loomis here breaking down the Iron Bowl from the Auburn perspective. Join him at E2C Network. It's right here on YouTube for everything Auburn. Check it out. How has the defense performed? I got to say, I'm trying to think the last time I watched Auburn play football. You know, when teams fade off the scene, Kyle, they go off my radar in regards to, except for looking at a box score and a recap. I've seen them a few times this year, but earlier this season, you know, how has the rest of the team progressed and developed, or maybe failed to do so?
You know, the defense has been pretty much the only solid point of this team. Now, they've had a few stinkers, especially in terms of allowing explosive plays over the last, not maybe the last few games, but just throughout the season. I think that's the biggest Achilles heel that this defense has, is they will allow some explosive plays at really inopportune times. It's a bend, don't break mentality. The defense is just loaded with all kinds of talent. I mean, we've seen names like Jalen McLeod really come on, the transfer from this past season over the last half of the season, and really, as he's gotten healthier, and really make some noise, winning some, you know, weekly awards with some performances he had in the sack realm as well. Marcus Harris on the defensive line. And Auburn's known from the beginning of the season that their defensive back group was just solid across the board. You know, Jalen Simpson started off the season basically having an interception every single game, or causing another interception by making a great hit and setting somebody else up to get an interception. This team has done a great job of creating turnovers. So what happens in this game? If Auburn creates the turnovers that it's shown it's capable of all season against an Alabama team that, yes, has found its footing, has found its momentum, but in Jordan-Hare Stadium, magic happens. I can say it again. It's the 10-year anniversary of the kick six. If you need any other explanation, any other reason for me to believe that Auburn can win this game in Jordan-Hare Stadium, even after that loss, I will point you to that and several other occasions where magic just happens in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And sometimes it's the defense that does it. So I would say this is an opportunity for the defense to really make its statement against an Alabama team that has a little bit of momentum offensively. And if they can do that, with the specialness of the history of this game and what happened 10 years ago, it's going to be a special night in Jordan-Hare.
So I shouldn't spoil that glimmer of hope by saying, well, that team was 10-1 and headed to a national championship game.
Yeah. You shouldn't spoil that, but obviously crazier things have happened. You know, I will say this anytime. If you take Auburn out of the equation in Jordan-Hare Stadium, then you just don't know Auburn football. It's the weirdest thing, especially when it comes to this game. That 2021 game with Brian Harson's first year, that team had no business competing, much less being seconds away from beating that Alabama team. I mean, people forget Bo Nix is gone for the year. Several other people, players are out for the season. TJ Finley, the starting quarterback at that time, was also playing very hurt as well. And we had a backup walk-on kicker who nailed a 50-yard kick to keep us in the game. That doesn't make sense. So this game, you can't throw out the stats. You can't throw out the history, but you also have to kind of leave that little room for belief there. Whether you're an Auburn fan, just, you know, hoping on a wing and a prayer, literally, or you're an Alabama team walking in here feeling a little bit extra confident. Nobody feels confident in this game because crazy stuff happens.
I don't know that I've ever seen a quarterback stay in a game that was hobbling to the degree that TJ Finley was against Alabama. And had they been able to take care of the football, protect the football, not run it out of bounds, maybe he would have become a Auburn legend just based on one game.
Right.
But it wasn't quite to be. 4 overtime loss. Yes. I'll say this, Kyle, that obviously we covered the ground in regards to what this means to the families and the friends and the coworkers and all of that, and how that transcends throughout the year. But in regards to the football operation on both sides, what type of impact can this game have? Not that you know this specific game, but through the years in regards to recruiting, status of the program, perspective.
Yeah, and that's a big question, because one of the ways people are making peace with what's happening this season is talking about the future. And I think that's a good perspective to have. For those Auburn fans that convinced themselves that we were going to have another magical 2013 season and a first-year head coach, I tried on our shows. Every time I would see someone say that, don't do that to yourself. Here we are sitting at 6-5 with the potential of being 6-6. This game, does it erase a New Mexico State loss? In some ways it does, but if you get the win, but it does kind of help you in terms of mentality, realize, all right, we're not as bad as we thought we were. In terms of recruiting, that's really where you look towards the future. This team needs to show that it can compete with the best in the SEC, and Alabama is among those still. And so what you can do is not just promise people opportunities. All they need to do is look at what happened against New Mexico State and see that there is ample opportunities to play early at Auburn. But if you show them that this crowd, this fan base, the passion stays no matter the record. I mean, look, we can look back to last season with the whole Cadillac Williams interim head coach job that he did and creating that fervor at the end of the season. This can do so much in terms of showing not just recruits, but recruits that are highly regarded and could have opportunities anywhere else. Not only can I play early here, but wow, if this is how big these fans respond to a game where they're just basically trying to get out of a bad bowl game at this point and get maybe a slightly better one, imagine what happens if I come here and I contribute to a potential national championship team, which this program historically has shown that it's fully capable of. So is this a game that immediately changes your perspective and the trajectory of your program? No, but what it does in terms of maybe recruiting with a big list of people, I'm sure, coming to the Iron Bowl this week. Yeah, this is important, not just for getting the sour taste of New Mexico State out of our mouth and the trend that this rivalry has taken, but what can happen in the future.
It is the Iron Bowl. It is classic. It is college football at its finest in regards to pageantry, tradition, history, all of it wrapped up into one. And yes, there is something different about the game on the plains and Auburn's fighting chance for that reason alone. Kyle Loomis here, E2C Network. Please join him and the rest of the crew there on YouTube. Kyle, enjoy the game. Happy Thanksgiving, and we appreciate you stopping by.
Same to you as well, and War Eagle.